Hello and welcome to the Technology Magazine show, the show brought to you by Technology Magazine and BizClik Media Group right here on LinkedIn. As you can see, my name is Scott Birch and I'll be bringing you the regular updates from the world of technology, courtesy of both Technology Magazine and its editor-in-chief, Mr. Alex Tuck. Are you there, Alex?
Yeah, great. Thanks, Scott. Glad to be here.
Good to see you. And virtually flanking Alex by the power of video shortly will also be editor-in-chief of AI Magazine. That's Catherine Gray. Catherine, how are you today?
I'm good, thanks, Scott. How are you?
I'm all right. But as you can probably tell, regular viewers might notice that my voice has maybe gone down an octave or two. That's because we were busy last week hosting our hugely successful live events in London. And so apologies if I sound a little bit hoarse, but we'll tell you more about all of those goings on a little bit later on. And coming up, we'll also have an exclusive preview of the new March issue of Technology Magazine. And that features profiles with the likes of NTT, Quatrix, Yext, SimCore, and more. And that's coming out in the next few days. In fact, it might even be today, Alex.
Yeah, we've also got a special guest today, Richard Einstein from VizRT, who will be telling us all about his really exciting technology that he uses with a number of big broadcasters in the television world.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to that. Actually, I've seen the clip, and I know that Richard's going to come on, and it sounds like really exciting stuff. Now we're also going to be revealing the result of our recent poll. So, what's the question that we asked people this week, Alex?
This week, it was mainly about trying to get a feel for the kind of topics that our viewers are interested in and would like to learn a little bit more about. So, the options this week were big data, AI and machine learning, robotic process automation, or edge computing. So all very trendy topics, and we want to find out which one people want to hear the most about.
Okay, so there you have it. I think the poll is still live, so you'll find that on LinkedIn. And also, anybody joining us live, please do come and say hello. You can post your comments in the comment section, oddly enough, underneath the show. And come and say hello. Tell us where in the world you are joining us from today. Don't forget, we'll also be having a bit of fun later on with Tech That Takes You Back, where Catherine and Alex will be competing to see who's got the oldest or weirdest technology from days gone by. And if memory serves, then Alex is winning this one 1-0 at the moment. But it's very early doors in this game, and it could go to extra time and penalties. Let's see what happens today. But without further ado, let's have a rundown of the latest BizClik news. Okay, now, as I said earlier, actually, last week we managed to pull off our largest live event yet, which was Sustainability Live. And that was from Tobacco Dock in London. Now, there were thousands of people in attendance, quite literally, there in person, but also joining us virtually. It's a really great occasion, some fantastic speakers, and lots of sessions and panels that were directly related to technology as well. So absolutely relevant here. Now, Alex was actually our roving reporter on the day, doing Vox Pops and catching all of the speakers and grabbing some time with them. So, Alex, what were your highlights?
Yeah, great event to be at, and wonderful to be in attendance there with so many big brands. Obviously, as the technology editor, I was very particularly keen to hear what the people from the big tech companies had to say. In particular, I was impressed with James Roby, global head of corporate sustainability for IT services and consultancy, Capgemini. He spoke really well and revealed some rather stark-looking graphs of the criticality of lowering the temperature curve when it comes to global warming, which I remember, Scott, you being on stage to observe that too. And yeah, it was. I think when you see that up front, as an audience, it sort of unites us all in being concerned about it, but also you get the feeling that everyone in that room was eager to do something about it. So that was great. And I also bumped into a company called Recycling Lives. He told me all about how they take old cars and break them down into their composite parts and reuse every single part of it, turning it into energy sources and other materials, but nothing wasted. Really quite remarkable. So yeah, really impressed with the vibe of the whole event. The Tobacco Dock's an amazing place to be in general. Yeah, the vibe was really positive and purposeful, and yeah, great to be in person again. And that was the gist that I got from everyone that I spoke to on the day, that they were just happy to be there and interacting with each other. And it seemed that really fed into some really creative discussions across verticals and industries in terms of collaboration. So really exciting stuff, and and hopefully the next one will be even bigger and even better.
Yeah, absolutely. And interesting, actually, you mentioned there people joining in person, and I certainly know that a lot of the speakers that we had on our main stage, some of those people hadn't been to a live event for like 2 years. And certainly hadn't been on stage doing a presentation for 2 years. So it was great to have them come out for our event, especially. And I mean, 2 of the sessions that I particularly enjoyed. What is all that banging going on? Who's banging around in the background? Hush now, we're live. 2 of the sessions that I really enjoyed were from Schneider Electric, actually. Steve Smith from Schneider Electric and also Barry Hurst, and they both gave some brilliant insight into Schneider Electric, widely regarded as the most sustainable company in the world, and voted the #1 company actually by Sustainability Magazine, our sister title. But they gave some great presentations talking about the long-term goals and initiatives that they set themselves, and how they're really making a difference now. Catherine, what about you? What was your highlights from the show?
There was loads. I do think that noises me. There's roadworks outside, so sorry about that, everybody. But I did get to pop in on a few of the talks, which was really good. Probably my favourite one was with Andrea Wiener. He works for the European Space Agency. And it's just something that I never really thought about. You see the adverts on telly, people are talking about kind of the ice caps melting and everything that's going on kind of on Earth, but so it was kind of nice to then think of something else and learn about something completely different. He spoke a lot about the impact of space debris and how he thinks a collaborative approach from all nations is really crucial to kind of solve that problem. So I thought that was really interesting. And then kind of away from the stage, just chatting to people. I spoke to a lot of the members of staff from Strudels who brought their wafer coffee cups to the event, which I got the pleasure to try, maybe more than I should have done. Maybe should have saved a few, but they were really, really tasty. And it was a really nice and kind of new way to get people talking about how the event was carbon neutral and just a new way to kind of and different kind of out of the box way to kind of achieve that. So I thought that was really interesting as well.
Absolutely. Great show. And obviously later in the year, we do have our very own tech, AI and cyber event coming up as well. So that's enough about Sustainability Live. Alex, what are some of the main news stories that you've spotted in technology this week?
This week, I'd like to highlight a little interview we did with Dr. Nikolai Galbich, Director of Research at a company called Pindrop. And they are experts in voice fraud. So the gist of that story was essentially around how voice fraud in itself is largely undetected by most organizations' cyber security setup. So it's something that I think is going under the radar a little bit at the moment. Perhaps it's when I think of this story, I think of the sort of scam calls that we get, which is very much part of the same sort of topic, but I think it's getting more and more sophisticated, especially when these things can actually interact with you. And I mean, I'd like to think that that I could spot it when I hear it, but there might well become a time when we can't, and we won't be able to tell the difference. So that's quite something to think about in terms of being able to have an interaction with an AI powered voice that
So,
learns.
are you saying that this technology, or there is technology out there that impersonates somebody's voice? So it can adopt your own voice, or it can kid you into thinking that you're speaking to somebody else that you know and you recognize that voice. Is that the story?
Yeah, I think that's pretty much the gist of it. Yeah, in terms of that technology, I think, as is usually the case for these things, the technology probably already exists. It's just a case of it sort of wriggling free and into the cyberspace to start kind of messing with large organizations. And I think more often than not, I guess they would catch other cyber threats, but with this, I think it's a new type of threat. So definitely one that I'm sure Cyber Magazine will probably be highlighting in the future as well.
Okay, Catherine, what have you spotted this week in the wide world of news?
Well, I did an interview this week with Michael Fenn, the co-founder and strategic advisor to Blue Yonder, which is a software as a service company, and it uses AI to transform the supply chain. So there's still quite a few supply chain disruptions and issues, and they're really kind of grasping AI technology, which can help them predict future demand and uncertainty across the supply chain, so it can make companies kind of more proactive to kind of the supply chain needs. And especially in a time when there's so many disruptions, this technology is kind of really great at kind of sidestepping a lot of those problems, and then in turn saving businesses quite a lot of money. So it was really interesting. I think especially after the sustainability show, there was kind of a lot there about supply chain and supply chain sustainability. And then this again is a really good way to kind of encompass all that and make kind of everyone's supply chain management a lot better.
Yeah, I mean, bearing in mind recent geopolitical uncertainties, shall we say, it just seems to be a never-ending impact to supply chains. And if technology can help to mitigate some of that risk or help with supply, then it can only be a good thing. Now, okay, well, thanks for that. Still to come, we've still got the game show that puts the tack back into tech. But now let's talk about what's coming up in the March magazine. So, Alex, why don't you highlight a few things that are coming up in the magazine, which could be hitting the digital shelves anytime soon?
Yeah, I'd like to highlight, and in fact, our guest today, Mr. Richard Einstein of BizRT, actually contributed to this feature. It's how AI is transforming sports fan engagement. So the gist of this is essentially that I was just interested to see what kind of innovations were happening on AI platforms such as mobile within the sports world, being quite a big sports fan myself. So it was sort of split into sort of a few different areas really, but sort of looking at things like sort of graphic overlays and enhanced viewing experiences, which I know Richard Einstein's going to talk about a little bit more later, in terms of how the AI technology is powering the kind of things we're actually seeing on screen already in terms of the sports, big sports events like the Winter Olympics and that kind of thing, Formula One, and how they're working in conjunction with cloud platforms like AWS to really sprinkle some stardust onto those kind of viewing experiences. But also spoke to another profile that we've got coming up for a company called Spark Compass, and that's Eric Bjontegard, who is a former NASA rocket scientist and Qualcomm executive who was involved in the road mapping of 5G and has so many different patents to his name in terms of his inventions. So he did some really interesting stuff with the All England Tennis Club, or as we might commonly call it, Wimbledon, in conjunction with IBM Watson. And that was essentially about activating Wimbledon. So there's a lot of people queuing outside to get into the championships, often in the rain. And so he activated all different types of little landmarks and plaques and things around, and walls and stuff, so that people could watch sort of classic matches. They just sort of would hover their phone or iPad and over the tops of these things, and it would all sort of interconnect with this another experience, really, from normally bringing up past events. But it's a lot more complex than that, and that I discussed the use of NFTs, and in terms of potentially giving sports fans a reward for actually attending games live, as opposed to sort of just watching at home all the time. They actually get a little something for doing that. So it would be this sort of digital token of some description, but perhaps it's it has some worth. Maybe some digital memorabilia of that day and that time. So yeah, some really interesting stuff going on in that article, and so check it out. It's beautifully designed as well by Sophie Ann Pinnell, our graphic designer. So shout out to her for some great work this month as well. So hopefully you'll enjoy that if you check out the magazine.
Okay, absolutely. And everyone can check out the magazine. Maybe you can do that by visiting our websites. You can find the magazines on there to read for free as well. Let's move on a little bit. So, Catherine, why don't you just pick out a couple of highlights for you from the March issue as well?
Yeah, definitely. So there's a feature that we've got with SimCorp and its commercial director of cloud services, Jacob Holland. And it basically focuses on the company's transformation from a software as a service company to a tech-enabled service company. So essentially, what the company wants to do is be a lot more customer focused and then provide kind of end-to-end solutions. So there's kind of no middleman. All they want to do is provide companies with the technology that they need, and they can kind of plug it in and go. So it's really, really kind of interesting because it takes a lot of responsibility away from the customers because everything is essentially already done for them. And then we have another one with Condor, which is a sustainable engineering company, and they've got a really robust sustainable digital transformation agenda. And Lou Wynn, the CIO, is a big driver behind that. And they discussed why the use of data and information technology is really crucial to the plans, and also kind of outlining where sustainability innovation aligns with all of that. So both really interesting. It always is with tech. There's always the technology is always the solution for everything, it seems. So it's great to kind of see where it fits with all the different companies.
Absolutely. Technology is the solution for everything. You heard it here first. Catherine Gray. Thanks, Catherine. Thank you, Alex. I think we'll take a break here now. Remember, you can also subscribe to our newsletter, read all the daily news, and read the digital magazine for free on our website. So I know we had the URLs going across there on the bottom, and they are posted in the comments as well. But for now, let's take a quick break. We'll be right back.
Cyber, we built that from the ground up as that field has gotten more complicated and involved. I'm Al Linseth. I'm SVP Process Technology and Risk Management of Plains All American. I own information systems, our business risk management program, and within information systems, cybersecurity. Probably what I'm most proud of with cyber is how I've become a community leader, an influencer there for the good of the Houston community. And we're trying to make Houston a better place for technology, increase their reputation. I speak a lot on risk management, applying that technology. There's a number of technologies that kind of fall under that are getting a lot of interest, like blockchain and edge computing, and advanced analytics, artificial intelligence. I look at now what's happening, and it's like Houston 2.0. There's just a great opportunity. I think the city's set up in prime to really have a great trajectory over the next 10 years. I think it'll continue to be the energy capital of the world, even as it transitions into renewables.
Okay, welcome back to the show, everyone. And by the way, I must apologise if anyone is experiencing any audio issues. Apart from Catherine's neighbours deciding to bang the pots and pans around, it feels like there might have been a few gremlins in the old machine there. So apologies if the audio has not been up to our usual super high standards. But we hope you enjoyed that window into our world and what we do for brands here at BizClik. And now, Alex, I'm going to turn to you now because I think it's time for our special guest that you teed up in the first half. Why don't you take it from here?
Yes, today we're going to be joined by Richard Einstein from VizRT, a Norwegian-based company who are a global market leader in 3D graphics, studio automation, sports analysis, and asset management tools for the media industry. Richard is a senior global product manager for sports at VizRT. And before we chat to Richard, I'm just going to play a little clip of the kind of amazing work that they get involved in. So take it away, Kieran. Amazing. Richard, thank you so much for joining us today. How are you today?
Hey, I'm doing good. Thanks for having me with you today in your today's edition.
Oh, it's a pleasure. Now, there's a lot going on in that clip, that's for sure. Can you just for anyone that is not familiar with your company? I hope I'm saying it right, by the way. VizRT.
Yeah, perfectly spelled. But that itself is already quite a bit hard work around the globe because the company is actually present quite much around the globe. And that one is a hard one for wherever we go around the globe. We get quite different suggestions, but you did it right.
Well, at least it's a talking point, isn't it? So, So for those who aren't familiar with what you guys do, can you just tell us a little bit about the company and about your role within it?
Yeah. So the company is a software provider for the digital media industry. And as you have seen in the show reel, we work with a lot of different sports, news customers, entertainment shows, where they use our mostly graphics offering to then visualize their story and have a more software-defined storytelling of whatever data-driven stories they want to do. I myself work more in the sports area where we have some of the solution you have seen before. For example, if you want to break down highlights of a game with some visualization tools, you have a circle and player and some prediction and stats embedded with it, or you want to show some virtual graphics on the field as the game is ongoing to show some data prediction, what's going to happen, stuff like that. And recently, we also have started to kind of embed more and more AI technology within that, about which we will talk on later on. But that's quite much what I'm doing in the company and what the company is about.
Amazing. So in terms of the events you've been covering recently, you've had involvement with the BBC, right? In some of their recent work.
BBC in general is probably one of our longest customers worldwide. We have a very long relationship with them, covering quite a lot of different aspects from media and asset management and different aspects, especially on the graphic side that we also work together with, that we help them to allow and enhance their broadcast. Obviously, one of the spotlights in the recent months was their coverage from Beijing, from the Olympic Games, where they were also using our technology to then do a lot of things virtually from UK, although it gave kind of the impression that a lot of the things were really with the virtual backgrounds in the past being produced in China. And they had quite a successful stint with that, with a lot of things and flexibility that they could do to do things in the UK while visually appearing in Beijing. And maybe just one more comment to that, although that was not necessarily BBC, or maybe I have done it as well, since I'm not in the UK, I haven't seen lots of their Olympics coverage. But I think one very interesting aspect is as well, with that type of technology and such an event where a lot of people, even more with the COVID restriction, were not able to go there. Kind of one recent technology that was really pushed hard during the Olympic Games was this effect of teleportation, where maybe the studio experts were sitting in this example in London, and they were bringing virtually the athletes from Beijing to talk with each other, although they were at a very different location. And that's something we have seen being used by a lot of our customers just to facilitate the logistics and not anymore needs to travel everyone to Beijing, or they were not even able to do that due to the restrictions. So yeah, that was also quite a cool story that was happening there.
Really cool. Very, very Star Trek. I love it.
Yeah.
In terms of, so I mean, it's funny I say that because I mean, obviously there's a holodeck on Star Trek, and that's kind of what you're doing, really, is creating these environments. So in terms of the stuff you did with because I know you mentioned it in the feature that we've got coming up in the magazine in March, in terms of the collaboration with Formula One and AWS. Can you just tell us a little bit more about that?
Yeah, I mean, that one was just, I think it was more something that was driven by AWS for where they were doing prediction on what was happening when going for the pit stop. So it wasn't necessarily us for reading the match, it was happening on the prediction of the story. And I think there it was about when should the driver go out for the pit stop to rather a lap more or less can make a difference if it's being able to take over the opponent. And for example, in Formula One, if you have watched the last season of the race, I think that was quite a crucial moment when Hamilton and Verstappen were fighting. And there was this moment actually when the tires were changed as well. So that was just one story to kind of give a prediction what's better to make the choice on the AI-based algorithms to say when it should be made. Although it wasn't us ourselves in that specific case that did kind of the AI magic. Very often our technology is used to visualize those data points in a live story. In this case, I think it's just more a text information that is being shown. But if you watch some other sports events, it's more something where you would see kind of a live data visualization of a heat map of a player, or maybe if there's a penalty being shot in soccer, and you see the prediction where typically the shots go. That's very often where our technology is very used and to visualize that. But in addition to that, obviously, we have also started to work really more AI-based to also learn more on historical data and then make predictions or better workflows to somehow within our own solutions provide a better solution for that as well.
Amazing. I know you've got a million use cases that you could talk about, and I wish we had time to talk about all of them. But just one final question, Richard. In terms of what the future holds for this type of technology, what could be achieved with this in terms of it, like into the distant future?
Mm-hmm. Maybe just first speaking from a technology standpoint and what it helps us as kind of for a better storytelling and more options to kind of provide insights to the viewer. Obviously with AI-driven technology, we have far better way to kind of drive the storytelling that's, as explained before, it's not only a simple overlay text. You can really apply things immersively into the story, or as the game is ongoing, that you maybe attach something directly to a player or an object on the broadcast that you can then relate the story to. So it gets more and more immersive, and AI technology helps a lot to kind of open the horizon of where you can apply those graphics and make them more and more subtle for the viewer. That's kind of part of watching a specific broadcast or a sports game, that this is really part of the game itself. And then obviously for our workflows in the background, there's more and more difficult, challenging tasks that could manually or by human intelligence alone not really be solved alone efficiently, where you also play more and more of this AI capabilities to handle workflows better, more automatic, with better prediction and so on. So I think that's a bit the footprint where I'm really involved with my technology. Being a very big sports fan, and obviously being also involved with our solutions where we can go next, I think again there's a complete new horizon of possibilities that are currently being unlocked by being more data driven. Just a very recent example that has been published, for example, was for in football again, for offside situations where the current solution is not fully automatic, that is being applied with whatever league. And FIFA kind of revealed their plans for the World Cup, that they want to go for a more automated fashion, where they would have from some form of limb tracking or pose estimation of all the players, a more automatic way to have a automatic way to define if it was offside or not, which is a very difficult decision for the eye itself. But having more access to artificial intelligence kind of allows to solve that problems more correctly and more automatically and quicker. Then you get to much better definition of such use cases, and that's definitely something, as a big football fan, I look forward towards end of this year, latest at the World Cup. I think we will see this where we have a more advanced technology solving one of the problems in sports better. But I think that's just one of thousands of examples that you currently see, and especially with data prediction and betting prediction, what's going to happen next in the game, where you see a lot of more machine learning going into that to kind of predict the story a bit of the game, or present for the viewer what's happening, or what all those data really means for him to draw some conclusions of.
Amazing. Thank you so much. Well, it sounds like an amazing job you've got there as well, and also a great name as well. So super. Thank you so much for joining us, Richard. Really appreciate it. Good
Thanks
luck
a lot for having me in with you.
Now, Richard, oh no, he's gone. Oh, he's back. Richard. I was going to say, Richard, before you go, Richard, could you tell us who your football team is?
Can I get embarrassing? It's my local one here in Switzerland, so we haven't won a title in Switzerland for quite some years, but it would be Grasshopper Club Zurich. They were in Champions League and so on 20 years back, but no successes in recent time. Internationally, it would be Barcelona. That one can be definitely more on the level of having successes in recent years.
Oh yeah, we've got a team like that in England as well. They're called Manchester United. They used to win something 20 years ago as well. Okay, we better move on. Richard, thanks for joining us.
Thanks as well. Have a good day. Here you bye.
Okay, that's going to get me into trouble, I know. But now it's the moment you've all been waiting for. Live from Norwich, it is the quiz of the week. It's tech that takes you back. Okay, now for anyone who missed this last week or the week before, this is where Alex and Catherine take turns to present to me a item of technology that they feel is worthy to be an iconic piece of technology that has changed our lives. Now, last time we did it, we actually physically had the products available. If memory serves, Alex had a fantastic calculator, and Catherine had a less fantastic mobile phone. And therefore, Alex took the points on that round one. So who wants to go first on round two? In fact, Alex, I'm going to choose. Why don't you go first? Show us your product and sell it to me.
Right, here we go. So this This is a clip of a news report. You can see in the background there. This is actually like a phone that flips open. This is Lawrence McGinty, who some of our older viewers might remember was a reporter for the BBC. And there he is, sort of getting out his big old block of a mobile phone, and which was very much the domain of the privileged when they first came out. But here, he gets out a prototype that British Telecom produced in 1988. Flip phone, actually voice activated, so you say something into it and it dials it. This is 1988, and somehow this didn't trigger off a chain reaction of similar devices until many years later, a good 15 years later or so. So I just couldn't believe when I saw this clip that this was in existence when it was. So yeah, that blew my mind. But it just goes to show that it doesn't always trigger off the revolution that maybe it should do for the people that maybe initially start to develop these concepts. So yeah, there's a lot that goes into the R&D of it before it can get into the public domain. Maybe it's because it was a British company that it didn't catch on.
Okay, that was impressive. I have to say it was a good start. And yeah, I mean that phone would not look wildly out of place today, especially if it's touchscreen, well ahead of its time, and the folding flippable technology. It's an impressive start, Alex. It's an impressive start. But Catherine, here's your chance. What have you got?
Okay, so I went down the more what takes you back route. So this is, I think, what the advert describes as the first ever virtual reality pet. So I remember I think this is one of my first ever electronic toys that I was given as a kid. It's a Tamagotchi, which is just a little tiny little plastic thing. I think it's got like 2 buttons on it, and it basically gives children the responsibility for a pet without parents having to actually clean up after the pet when they don't look after it. So I think this was definitely given to me as a see how you do with this, and then maybe we'll get you a dog. I didn't get a dog till I was 22, so I think that I didn't do very well with it. But Tamagotchis, I think everyone who's probably born in like the 90s probably had one as a toy when they were growing up, because I mean they were just brilliant. It's not really showing you what the Tamagotchi is on this clip yet, which is a shame.
No, it's not. Do you know what? I think I've seen enough, as Alan Sugar might say. I've seen enough, Kieran. Okay, interesting. I am going to make a judgment on this. Now, I think in this instance, Alex, you're fired. I'm going to go with Catherine's Tamagotchi, only because it was quite tragic, and she played the dog card, saying she didn't get a dog.
There it is.
There we go. Tamagotchi certainly is tech that takes you back, so I think we'll go with that. Although I probably am showing my age, because I was far too old to have one of those. Alex, did you ever have a Tamagotchi?
I do remember them actually, and I guess there is something sort of quite profound about people getting upset if their little digital animal suddenly just perished. That was quite an extreme bond forming between the digital and the human. So yeah, perhaps a bigger threshold broken than the flip mobile phone. So.
Don't get me wrong, I did like the flip mobile phone, but I'm giving this round to Catherine, so it's 1-1. So next show, let's see who takes the lead. Okay, let's move on. Let's quickly do the results of the poll. So Alex, just remind us what the question was, please, and tell me what the readers and followers have said.
Yep. So our marketing whizzes asked the ether, the technological ether, what topic they would most like to hear more about, because we like to serve here at Technology Magazine, and the options were big data, AI and machine learning, robotic process automation, and edge computing. And yeah, so I have the results in front of me, and coming in fourth position, edge computing, sadly, which I'm actually quite surprised about, and will be writing more about anyway. So sorry about that, viewers. It's going to explode. Thirdly was robotic process automation with 19%. Second was big data, 21%, and overwhelmingly, of course, as Catherine will be delighted to hear as the AI editor, it was AI and machine learning with 44%. Yeah, it's always a winner, and not surprising, I don't think.
Okay, so I am going to expect you to be tailoring future content based around this survey of our readers as well. So clearly, even more AI and machine learning content required. Look, we're going to have to wrap it up there because we're over our 40-minute limit. That's sadly all we've got time for today. But thanks for joining us for the Technology Magazine show. My highest regards as ever to Alex, Catherine, Richard Einstein, our special guest, for joining us today. We hope you enjoyed the new magazine. Keep your eyes peeled for that. It might even be out later on today. And we'll see you next time. Say bye, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.